You know, I think it's fun being a part of something that's been going on now for close to 4,500 to 5,000 years. And it's just something about the feel, physical labor, and smell of barrel being made. And then, like I said, to me, the most important part of all is the people that you meet.
Oh, the people in the cooperage industry are great characters, and you know, they are all really hardworking people, and you know, and it shows. The operators and the owners are very passionate about their business. You know, they say once you get sawdust in your hair, you can't get it out because it's in your blood and you love it. You know.
My place is at the mill. That's where I belong, and a lot of people here look at me as like an old stave mill or sawmill man, and they don't see me any other way. And that don't bother me one bit because that's what I do.
The American oak is just, it's American. It's like America. I can see how all these different countries want to have that sort of influence. You know, I mean, it's a strong, again, comforting sort of flavor and texture that you get that you can't duplicate anywhere else.
Strong men, big timber. These powerful themes run through the history of the American cooperage industry. The pride and ingenuity of the American worker, the character and integrity of American white oak. Combined, these forces have created an industry that is respected and envied around the globe. The entire world wants and needs barrels made of American wood, barrels made by American coopers. This story starts, as it always has, on a rocky hillside deep within the forest of eastern North America.
I just enjoy being out here. You know, you're out here, you're pretty much your own boss. You do it pretty much whatever you want to do. It is hard work. It is hard work. You wake up in the morning and you're sore, but it's just, you know, I mean, you come out here, you get to hear all the sounds. It's peaceful. You know, you come down here by yourself at first in the morning, and the only thing you can hear is a saw and the big timber when it hits the ground. It's just enjoyable.
Modern forestry practices are efficient and sustainable. Timber is selectively cut as it matures. Every part of the harvested tree is utilized. The highest grade lumber comes from the white oak tree, long a mainstay in the shipbuilding and furniture industries. With a unique cellular structure that is impervious to water and an aromatic mix of tannins and other substances to provide flavor to spirits, it's the perfect wood for a barrel, and it grows in abundance in eastern North America.
The image of American oak has greatly been elevated because of a better understanding of what it takes to make a really good American oak barrel that really enhances a real fine wine or a spirit.
What I like about American oak is the fact that it has gotten so much better in the last 20 years because we've worked hard to try to identify those characteristics that previously we didn't have any knowledge of. And now that subtlety has become an issue for so many winemakers, they're beginning to see that the benefits of American oak are right in front of them.
Today, the American cooperage industry is built on this special ability of white oak to flavor and season fine wines and spirits. Almost all the barrels made in this country today are used in that capacity. But that wasn't always the case. At one time, barrels were used to hold just about everything. The craft of cooperage has a long and distinguished history.
That even though we think our history is old at 1899 for the association, that actually it goes back 200 years or three before that. I had run across a ship's manifest with a ship sailing from Baltimore to Liverpool, England in 1633 that had loaded 40,000 staves. So one of the very earliest things this country exported was white oak staves.
Used to be everything moved in wooden barrels. Water, foodstuffs, oil. They brought, the Mayflower had water, all their water was in barrels, and there was nothing else to put it in. As a rule, from the old times, the father would teach the son. It would just kept moving down the line.
In the era of the hand cooper, one man and his family would usher the barrel from the forest to its final destination. They were master craftsmen. The polish on their tools reveals the countless hours of hand labor. It was hard work, but a fascinating process. Eventually, American ingenuity began to replace the hand labor. Machines of every kind began to appear, making the production of the American barrel faster, safer, and easier. The production of staves for the barrel industry has experienced a similar transformation.
I'm a third generation stave miller. My grandfather was in the stave business, my father was in the stave business, I'm in the stave business. And I can remember going to my first stave mill operation in Arkansas when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I can remember back that far.
My earliest remembrance is visiting my uncle's mill that ran with a steam engine. And it had a line shaft drive, and all the machinery ran with belts off that old line shaft drive.
I have the same recollection, and those old line shaft drives was overhead, and I've heard my dad tell me that if a belt broke, you got under something real quick because that old flat belt would whip you all over.
Well, I was a small boy, and my father sat around the fireplace and said living was hard to make at that time, and he knew where a small stave mill was at. So he decided to buy that. It's just a hard, brutish job at that time, And we went making it better as we could, Brought that drum saw and we set it up. We set it up on line shafts, hooked the edges up to it, hooked the steam up to it, pulled it, and I fired the steam boiler, and we started to work.
When I first remember it, I helped my grandpa when I was back in the late 50s, and everything was done manual. Shovel, sawdust, wherever you unload the logs at, usually we had to pack them to the mill and run them through the saws, and it required a lot more labor then. And then the forklifts come along, and that made carrying them heavy blocks, getting them closer to the saws, and made it a lot easier. And then a different machinery comes up to make the staves with.
But the automation has really been a big thing. Now, when we started out, all we had was a little Jubilee Ford tractor and a pickup truck and a GM diesel engine along with our mills, and hired our trucking done, so we didn't have hardly anything.
Of course, originally, a cooper would make a barrel from scratch. He'd plane the staves and do it, and he could actually do it by hand, and they did it by hand. But all through the years, we kept developing. Our engineers and other people's engineers would keep developing new pieces of equipment, more automation.
Every new technology has its day, but eventually, each new innovation gives way to the next. The barrel saw and the drum saws of the 1950s and the 1960s now sit idle in backlots, revealing little of the nameless men that struggled over them. Those stories of cantankerous machinery and back-breaking labor now fade with the rusting iron. But each new innovation had a purpose. Production of staves became faster, easier, and safer.
One of the big savings and the big changes in the mills is making a better place to work, making it easier. Everything's more on conveyors, belts, rollers. We don't have to pick it up. They don't have to lift like they used to. It's just considerable better.
But stave mills have become more concentrated, more efficient, and both in manpower and in wood. So now we're probably about as good as they're going to get. We used to waste a lot of wood, a lot of material, but everything's used now, even the sawdust and bark.
Today's stave mills are a marvel of modern efficiency, an intricate dance of men, wood, and machine, all choreographed for maximum speed, quality, and comfort. And the treatment of staves before they enter the cooperage has evolved its own sophistication. Air drying for extended periods creates wood perfect for the flavoring of spirits. The stave mills of the eastern hardwood forests mechanized and modernized through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but they still depended on the whims of the bourbon industry to sell their product. However, developments taking place 1,000 miles to the west would have a lasting impact on the American cooperage industry.
When I first started in the industry here in 1975, there were a lot of prune orchards, walnut orchards. Cattle was still the driving industry for the county. It wasn't until many years later that the grape industry took over for the cattle industry. This is a wonderful Appalachian area. We can grow some wonderful grapes here that are world known.
Back in the late 60s, early 70s, you had pioneers like Robert Mondavi, like Rodney Strong, entrepreneurial people that were interested in making the best wine that they could, and the ambition was to compete with the best wines of the world. And so it was a very exciting time, and there was a lot of opportunity. One huge area of opportunity. There's a big hole as far as support industries were concerned, like the cooperage trade. The time that I got involved in wine, there was one cooper in all of California, as far as I knew at the time. You can imagine that this fellow was in great demand. There were no operating cooperages on the West Coast. In fact, anywhere outside of bourbon whiskey country.
That quickly changed. French coopers, such as Jean-Jacques Nadalier and Philippe Demptos, saw the opportunity that the expanding wine industry presented, and the California cooperage industry was born.
We started manufacturing barrels in August of 1980, and then a couple years later we had competition come in like Demptos, and soon after Sagamaro and Radu and so forth. So we figured we were doing something right because the competition was coming to town. And it took us a little while to really refine what we were doing. Because American oak is so much different than French oak, well, we thought that was the way to begin. Do it like the French do it, and make that traditional French oak barrel, but it wasn't the same. So it took a while for us to go through experimentation to refine what it was in American oak and how to process it to make the barrel that was right for wine.
It was a process, and it was an interesting evolution that American oak went from being something that was really only used for the spirits industry to becoming an integral part and a huge part of the winemaking in California and the greater winemaking community across the United States.
The French coopers, so pivotal in the California cooperage industry, quickly saw the potential of American oak.
So for me, French oak and American oak are two different species that give different results to the wine. And most of the winemakers, they understand that and they use the different product for what it gives to the wine. So for me, it's not a competition between French oak and American oak, it's just what is the best blend for what wants the winemaker to achieve at the end of the aging of his wine in the barrel.
All the studies, the analysis, all the efforts, the investment, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were spent in France in order to understand better the interaction between wine and wood, French oak and wine. We are trying to bring this to the United States by trying to understand the interaction between American oak and wine here in the US. This is really the future for us. The way we see it is how we're going to be able to bring facts and figures to the winemaker so we can help them make a better decision.
Helping winemakers is now a central theme for the American cooperage industry. The expanded toolkit provided by American Oak gives today's vintners a unique opportunity to help create new and exciting products.
From where my father started with American Oak 30 years ago to where it's come now is just leaps and bounds. And where we can go, I think, is the most exciting thing for me. How can we mix and match French barrels with oak barrels with a certain variety, and how can this make a more dynamic, more layered, more interesting wine, basically? And I really think that's where we've come to and where we're going to.
It's almost like a spice you use with food. Which one matches your vineyard? And then that goes to the terroir of the vineyard and the soil, the climate, the vine, the weather, and the people. And I think the cooperage is like a grape. It's a raw material as important as the grape when you age in barrels. So American Oak has a huge, huge future in wine business in the world.
Even after 20 years, it's always the same pleasure every morning because it's the material, it's something which is alive, and it's never exactly the same thing. And the aroma, and at the end of the day, you can touch it. You have created something. It's real, and you have that every day.
And that final product, wine aged in American oak barrels, continues to make a lasting impression.
My job's incredible. I get to taste wines from all over the world. I get to visit wineries, from all over the world. Like again in Rioja, this place called Lopez de Heredia. I mean, the first time I open a bottle of something from Spanish wine or Rioja wine using American oak, I mean that's what just gets me excited. I mean, it's comforting. I mean, it feels good. You're like, oh yeah, that's it. So many wines I'm not sure about that, but when you open something like that with the American oak on it, it's a comforting. You feel good. You just want to drink that bottle.
If a $300 or $400 bottle of wine can be aged in American oak, what's wrong with it? On the current page, state of the art right now is very, very high for American oak barrels.
Like their counterparts from an earlier era, American coopers remain a tight-knit fraternity.
I think that a barrel salesman has the best job in the world, and that's been part of my job description over the years. To be able to go around, make friends with people, go out, taste wine with them, have a nice lunch, enjoy the results of our labors, as it were. And we're very privileged to be in an industry. I can't think of another industry that would be as good to be in.
Built on the very finest natural materials, strengthened by an intense commitment to craftsmanship, this industry's most lasting characteristic may be the strong bonds of camaraderie and friendship that have been nurtured throughout the years.
This has been a great, great life. The people that I know, people I've met, we've been competitors, we've been collaborators, but we've always been colleagues. And I think I don't know about any other industry because I've never worked in any other, so I don't know if it's any different, but it seemed to me always to have been unique in that regard.
The growth of the wine industry expanded the market for the American oak barrel, and that expansion didn't stop in California. Today, the American cooperage industry operates in every corner of the world. The existing bourbon cooperages are now complemented by global demand for American wine barrels.
We figured out pretty quick early in life there wasn't a lot of money to be made in Novelty, Missouri in the timber business. The export business, the old world's getting smaller, it's very easy to export. I had a group there the other day and it was a tour, and they asked me where we sent our wood, and I didn't realize it, but I stopped and looked right there at that wood that I could point and show them, and I had wood going to 5 different countries.
American oak barrels are used all over the world, from South America to South Africa to Australia to China, all throughout Europe. Everybody uses American oak.
The modern cooperage may move at a faster pace, but all the magic of the old hand cooperage is still there. The fire, the smoke, the feel of the wood in the skilled joiner's hands. The production may have increased, but the essential connection with the traditions of the past remains unchanged. Any hand cooper from days gone by would take deep pride in today's American barrels.
It's a nice game to have been in, and my main thing is that I have to have a place to go to work every morning, and to me it's just an old stave mill. That's where I started in the 50s, and it's just the deal of cutting staves, and of course we developed that into making barrels, and we slowly moved on into the wine business, and it's been very, very profitable for us.
I mean, I think that for the American cooperage industry, I think there's still great value in having barrels for, for whiskeys. I mean, it's 60 or 70% of the flavor and of everything. The flavor and the aroma and the texture comes from that. A lot of it comes from the cask. So I think there's a great future there. I mean, it's also part of the whole romance of that industry. I mean, but if you can talk about, this fine grain American oak wood sourced and seasoned for 3 years, and that's genuinely interesting and fun to talk about, and it does taste really good.
From the hills of Kentucky to the Napa vineyards, American coopers describe their industry as something special. Of course, it's the smell of the toasted oak and the pride of creating a product you can see and feel with your own 2 hands. As the first generations of coopers pass the torch to succeeding generations, it's these bonds, this common link between coopers, that will propel the American cooperage industry's continued growth and success on a world stage, and will ensure that the hardships and traditions of the past are never forgotten.